Nature hides mysteries that once discovered you would like to forget. Some terrifying creatures live in the wildest places, and even the bravest man would flee away from them. Some are just disgusting, but others have inspired the most evil of horror films. We warn you, this is a video only brave people should watch. If you're not one of them, we recommend you escape immediately. Starting from this, today we'll investigate what are the 5 scariest things about nature. Before we begin, make sure you hit that subscribe button to get notified every day for more amazing content. With that being said, let's begin. Number 5. Marine lampreys. The animal you're seeing is called aquatic vampire or the sea lamprey. They are primitive fish that don't have jaws. They share a similar resemblance to eels, although they're different on the inside. With that gelatinous body and without scales, it makes us believe this is the sea version of leeches. However, they don't have much in common. If you consider yourself an expert in marine biology or a fisherman par excellence, it shouldn't be strange for you to see lampreys attached to the side of sharks, salmon, cod, and any aquatic mammal. This animal usually inhabits the waters of the North Atlantic Ocean. Although the increase of artificial barriers and water contamination have caused them to decrease in this area. It will fascinate you to know that lampreys live most of their lives in the sea, but they reproduce and die in rivers. In fact, once they're born, they spend the first 4 or 5 years in the larval stage. Once they reach a length of about 20 centimeters, they are considered to have surpassed this stage. Don't worry, that size is nothing compared with the 100 centimeters they get to measure once they're adults. It's at this point and with these measurements that they go to the sea, where they'll live until reaching sexual maturity. If you want to know how they reproduce, we inform you that it's very similar to that of any fish. Between spring and summer, they look for shallow places. Here, they build a nest of stones which they transport with their mouths. The male is attached to the female with his mouth and remains curled to her. The female is fixed to a stone on the bottom and lays between 50,000 to 200,000 eggs. After this, the parents die. The larvae hatch after 2 to 3 weeks, and they are carried downstream. When they are in a larval stage, they're blind creatures. They don't have teeth, and their feeding mechanism is very different, since their mouth has small beards that filter some form of life. In fact, the difference is such to its adult evolution that many scientists believe they were members of another species. Number 4. Trees covered with spider webs. If you're one of those who, when seeing a spider, feels scared, we recommend you skip this spot and go straight to the next. But if your curiosity is bigger than your fear, stick with us. Spiderweb trees aren't at all a new species discovered by botanists. On the contrary, it's the ecosystem that's created under extreme environmental conditions. Spiders are forced to invade these small trees to protect themselves. At first glance, it might look like a huge cotton candy, but once you've gotten close, this strange string wrapping reveals ghostly creatures. Its inhabitants are more than used to this view. They've even adapted to the photographers who usually appear there to document this phenomenon and make a release for a magazine. If you're dying to know what originated this, we'll explain it to you right now. Near 2010, multiple floods took place in the region and small 8-legged friends were trapped in the trees. Since then, they've begun to wrap the branches of the new house with a dense web. We think after seeing this, you won't second guess the intelligence of a spider again. And maybe it's time to be grateful for their small size. Can you imagine what they would do if they measured much more? Unfortunately, this ecological disaster has affected large areas of the country. Both people and animals have been forced to resort to their cleverness in order to survive. Since the desire to survive can lead anyone to overcome the most challenging realities, this area can be taken as a prime example. Interestingly, these trees have helped in the fight against malaria. Before 2010, this disease used to increase with each flood. However, this peculiar ecosystem have trapped many mosquitoes, thus saving the lives of many people who might die from malaria. It's something that has benefited more than one party. Spiders are being fed and people's health have improved. Sure, both will have thanked in silence. So no matter how much you may fear these spiders, please never attack them. Who knows, these little animals could become powerful allies for humans. And what happened in Pakistan is a very good example. Number 3. Bat flower. It's no secret to anyone that orchids are one of the most fascinating and beautiful flora in the botanical world. There are multiple varieties of species among them, and they all stand out for the aspect they possess. But have you ever thought about which would be the most ugly one in the family? Among orchids, we can find the bat flower, also called cat whiskers or the flower of the devil. Obviously, the nicknames say a lot about this plant. This is a plant with short stems that grows from a thick and fleshy tuber. It has an exotic origin, a plant native of Bangladesh, from which it inherited its peculiar appearance. Take a look at its leaves. They're simple, erect, and their union with the stem is slight. It's also featured by elliptical shape and bright colors. A very dark green on one side and more pale on the other. They're not very tall since they measure between 10 and 30 centimeters. As you would expect, it offers a fruit. This one is similar to a berry because of its purple tone and because it's fleshy. And unlike other orchids, it also provides seeds. If you ever find some of these seeds and want to plant them in your garden, we recommend you pay close attention to this next bit of information. You must plant your seeds immediately. That is to say, at the moment of being expelled by the flower, you must place the seed underground. The earth has to be moist and it has to be warm. That way, these seeds can germinate much more efficiently. This exotic orchid shouldn't be rushed. We'll have to wait a lot to see if it germinates. Maybe it takes between 1 and 9 months. So if you're a little impatient, you should dismiss this idea immediately because it can't go in your garden. In addition, it's important to know that this is a typical plant of greenhouses and shaded patios. Temperatures also define the life prospect of this plant. During the winter months, you should water it little and have it at a temperature of less than 15 degrees. Remember, the cold is not its friend. Not only does it obstruct its flowering, it also weakens it. On the contrary, during the hot months, it'll increase the risk of dying of thirst, but we'll have to take care of temperatures above 30 degrees and intense sunlight. Do you dare to have one of these plants in your home? Number 2, octopus stinkhorn. In our second place, we find a mushroom that has nothing to envy with horror movies. This specimen that seems to be taken from the Aliens movie is called the Clathrus archeri, although it's better known as octopus stinkhorn or the devil's fingers. The image you'll see next is one from when it's living inside a sac, as if it were an egg. The long red, nauseating fingers of the mushrooms can be seen on the translucent membrane. Out of context, anyone would think it's preparing itself to segregate a viscous substance from within. You should know most mushrooms sprout from the ground. However, the devil's finger emerges from an egg. This is usually surrounded by wood chips that are rotting. They could also be protuberances of old plants or in between the branches. The trouble with these little eggs is that they're very viscous. They're wet and gelatinous. They're always stored in bunches, measuring around 4 to 6 centimeters high and 2 to 4 centimeters in width. These species are native to New Zealand and Australia, but they arrived to Europe in 1914, and it's believed they were first introduced to the region in France through military supplies from the First World War. Who would have thought that these little guys would be the perfect spies? First, they were found in Cornwall, and shortly after that they were registered in parts of Sussex. Since then, they can be seen in Bedfordshire, Hampshire, Kent, Suffolk, Surrey, and the Channel Islands. It will be disturbing to note that as the fungus matures, 4 fingers in the form of tentacles emerge from the sac and grow so much they reach 10 centimeters in length. Its 4 protuberances are covered by a sticky olive green substance, which is usually called gleb because it attracts flies. However, the fungus isn't entirely carnivorous, but covers the flies in the gleb that carry spores and turns them into dispersing agents. That is to say, it uses the flies to reproduce and spread. While these mushrooms are toxic when adult, but they're edible when they're in the egg stage. Although we have to ask ourselves, who would eat something that looks so bad? We're completely amazed by those countries that even consider it to be a delicacy. Who knows? Maybe we're missing out on something that tastes better than chocolate. But the best thing is not taking the risk, because who knows if it can cause irritation, seizures, or cancer. The best thing is to not eat something that looks so bad. Not even a little bit. Number 1, the bleeding fungus. In our first place, there's another fungus. We weren't sure whether to give it the spot for its appearance or for its rarity. It has many names. Bleeding fungus, teeth of the devil, bleeding teeth. And you can call it whatever the hell you want. We like vampire fang because it sounds very attractive, like a candy you would buy in a store. In our opinion, more than resembling blood or the devil's teeth, it reminds us of the liquid caramel used in some desserts. The truth is that this fungus is known because its sex cells are produced on the surface, like a kind of vertical sting. This usually has an intense reddish color similar to blood, although you can also find specimens that produce pink, yellow, orange, or other colors. The truth is that ruby liquid is not toxic, but that doesn't make it edible. Although there are always people who haven't resisted the temptation to try it. They testify that it does have a meaty flavor. These same people have described it as extremely bitter and spicy. If you're wondering why it has a ruby color, this is due to a pigment called atramentin that has anticoagulant properties, similar to blood heparin. Therefore, this fungus has antibiotic properties. You could find it in North America and Europe, although some specimens have recently been discovered in Iran and Korea. Undoubtedly, it's a lovely species, although many people at first glance find it disgusting. That is to say, if you suffer from trypophobia, you'll most likely tremble when seeing it. What name would you give to this amazing fungus? Please leave your comments below. Hope you enjoyed the video, Top Fivers. If you haven't already, check out our other channel, Americano, to enjoy even more amazing list videos. There'll be a link in the description.